Hello, my friends. Jacob is here once again. Happy Sunday to you. Thank you for pressing play, for spending a little time with me today for what is a very, I'm sure, very super important, amazingly insightful, eye-opening, and downright, well, possibly terrifying show for those of you who don't have faith. It may be a little spooky for you. 7 years. 7 years. If you've been following the channel long enough, or if you've seen some of my earlier videos, you know that I talk a little bit about breadcrumbs and how I follow these little things and how things will stand out to me from time to time, and I take a little notice of it. And then if the very same thing comes my path again, from a different means, especially having to do with an other thing that's somehow related to this other thing that I stumbled upon, I make a connection there. And then I realize that perhaps I'm being told that I should look a little bit deeper into this. And that's what happened with this 7 years. And this is a freaky show. This is a freaky show. Okay, so I'm going to take this piece by piece, but I'm going to start off with reminding you about a show that I did about the eclipses, the Great American Eclipse, and how this eclipse makes a nice X right over the United States within a 7-year period, where I had said that there was going to be a 7-year period of, great trying and testing, if you will, that the tribulation of sorts that it's not going to happen right away, but we're going to enter into that time. I didn't really understand the full scope of this, but I knew that it was important. So much so that when a video called Pharaoh's Warning, which I think was pretty cool. It was done by a channel called John X Army. He's a very cool dude. John, I guess, did a video on the, wordplay, Pharaoh's Warning, fair warning, and he went in a little bit on Joseph and the 7 years, and he was basically talking about Pharaoh's Warning. I left a comment because I said, well, yeah, there's 7 years in between these eclipses, so I left a comment. I didn't really put, 2 and 2 or 7 and 7 together yet, but I would soon. As soon as I left that comment, I quickly got off, and I found this comment. Out of the blue, I liked the number 7. And I thought that was strange, because I was just thinking about why is this number 7 so kind of like standing? I felt like when I heard him mention it and when I left that comment, I felt like there was something there. I just didn't know what it was. And I knew that I needed to come on here and talk to you about this 7-year period that we're in right now and the 7 years that follow. But I didn't know that there'd be a huge, gigantic bovine named Knickers. You probably saw the picture floating around online, right? Of that gigantic, it wasn't a cow. They said it was a cow, but it wasn't a cow. It was a Holstein steer. I think it was 6'4", 2,800 pounds. That was on November 28th. Picture of strength and fortitude, and getting ahead of myself. I'm getting a little bit of, if there was ever like a show that I would say, this could be like one of those prophecy shows. This could be like a prophetic thing. This could be something, something that's playing out in the natural to explain what's going on in the spiritual. But in fact, this could be, right on the nose, if you will. Well, I kind of put all this 7-year stuff to rest, like I knew I was supposed to do, but I kind of just forgot about it for a little while. Until today at the gym. Okay, so I'm at the gym this morning, and I know that I want to start coming on here on Sunday and talking about deeper spiritual things, for the people that are more interested in the faith, the message of faith that I like to share within each of these kooky videos that I do each and every week.
Don't forget to subscribe and share it around and tell your friends and like and comment. It's very helpful. It's very helpful, and I appreciate it. I really do.
So I was praying. I was praying, meditating, doing whatever, however you want to call it. I was saying, what am I supposed to do today? What am I supposed to talk about today? And right before I leave the gym, I just open up my phone randomly and I go to YouTube because I try to comment. I try to respond back to all of you. You'll see it in spurts. When I get a chance, I do it. And I get this comment right here. Little Blessing says, did you see Jonathan Cahn's video with the cows that had the number 7 on their head? And it just like hit me, right? It was like a chill goes down, like the hairs on the back of my neck start to rise, and I go, 7. I said, that's it. I know that it's there. I know that now I'm supposed to do a show on it. So I immediately get to work. I start researching. And yeah, it's going to blow your mind. It's going to blow your mind. Okay. So I decide that we're going to stick with the 7 theme, and I'm going to pick a 7-day period in my search. So I'll go to Google and I'll type in, I'll do a little filter in the last 7 days. And I decide to start off with the word cow. And of course, we find the huge cow, the Holstein, right? 2,800 pounds. And I remember seeing him. Do you guys remember seeing that big cow? Big monster cow, a symbol of strength, a symbol of prowess. If Pharaoh dreamed that dream, see, we're going to tie all this in to what happened in Egypt with Joseph, which all started with me coming across John X. Army's video on fair warning. So the story goes that Pharaoh, he had this troubling dream. He had a couple of troubling dreams, right? One of them was where he saw all this plentiful wheat, and then it was blasted. I know it now says corn. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, Mandela or not, okay? There was a very healthy harvest, and then there was a very blasted, terrible one, right? And nobody could give him the interpretation of it. So Pharaoh's this, big, tough dude. He's in charge of everything, ruler of everything, right? They would consider him God on earth, and he has these dreams, but he knows that there's more to it. Now, meanwhile, what's happening is you got this character named Joseph. He would be Jacob Israel's, one of his favorite sons, right? And he was in prison the whole time. And while he was in prison, how God sees fit. See, this is a great lesson for us because, no matter how many times we're knocked down or no matter where we are in our life, whether we're in prison, whether we're in debt, whether we're just sick, wherever we are, we're there for a reason. And if we have our eyes open to the greater purpose, we will find it, which is what Joseph did. And he was presented with the wine bibber and the baker. And they were both thrown in prison at the same time. They had a dream. Joseph interprets the dream. And what ends up happening was, the baker ends up getting killed for stealing, and the wine bibber is restored to Pharaoh's presence. So when Pharaoh has this dream, right? This wine bibber that was in prison with Joseph, who basically realized after telling the dream, Joseph called it. He said, one of you is going to be restored, and the other one, you're going to be killed. He tells Pharaoh, he goes, look, I know that nobody's getting this dream right, but there's this guy that was in prison, and we told him a dream, and he just nailed it. He nailed it. Maybe you should have him come out. So Pharaoh summons Joseph. Joseph comes out of prison, Pharaoh tells him part of the story, tells him part of the dream. And Joseph's like, okay, tell me the other part. Because Joseph understood that things, just like this video, right? I didn't come on here to talk to you when I saw a couple of little correlations. I waited until I saw another and another, because there's a great passage in Scripture that says, in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, God's word is established. So if God is trying to tell you something, it won't just happen once or twice. It'll happen maybe 2, 3 times, maybe 4 times. And then when you start seeing it, you start looking for it, you'll start seeing it everywhere, which is exactly what happened with this. Because I believe, I'm going to get to that, I believe we're in this 7-year period, and I think it's coming to an end, and we're going to be looking at a terrible 7 years to follow. I've said it, I know it, I try to stay away from the doom and gloom, but I kind of have this feeling, and you're going to see why, because in a moment or two. So Pharaoh has this dream, these 7 cows, they come out and they're very healthy and they're grazing, everything's great. Then he has another one, and he has these, zombie-looking, walking dead cows coming out, going, and they eat the other cows. It's a terrible dream. Joseph says, this is the deal. You're going to have 7 years of plenty. 7 years of plenty, and you're going to have 7 years of famine. So you better store up. And that's the story. And that's how Joseph ended up becoming like the second most powerful man in the entire world. Because in the 7 years that they had, where they knew that they had plenty, right? They stored everything up. They stored everything up. And that's a symbol of not just in the natural, okay? I'm not here to tell you to store up and make sure that you're prepping. Well, you should be. You should be prepped up. You should be ready to go. I'm not the guy that's selling you things, right? But you should take care of yourself and you should be ready just in case something happens. But spiritually is where I'm talking. That's the main thing. You got to be storing it up right now because there's 7 years of plenty. And when this following 7 years that happens, possibly right after that second eclipse, perhaps that'll be the time when things are going to get really tough. And why do I say that? Well, just like Pharaoh's dream and everything else, you have this one gigantic steer, Holstein steer, gigantic knickers coming out, right? Topping the scales. It's November 28th. November 29th, you got Little Bill. Yeah, that's right. So you got the world's biggest cow, the world's biggest steer, the world's biggest bovine is being showcased, and then the next day, the world's smallest? It's weird, right? Now, you know what's weird about that huge, gigantic steer named Knickers? He's 7 years old. Strange, right? Coincidence, right? Well, you know what else is a coincidence? Is within that 7-day period where I'm doing that Google search, guess what I found? I found in India, 7 cows were burned to death in an attack. 7 cows, charred, annihilated. So you got the big 7-year-old picture of strength and picture of, jacked up, right? Monsanto-laden bovine. And then you got the 7 charred, annihilated, and you got the small cow. Great provision, little teeny bit of provision. And you got the 7 charred cows, murdered, slaughtered. And guess how many people were actually suspected of this? Well, there were, as a 12-year-old and an 11-year-old, out of these 7 Muslims are to blame for this terrible slaughter. They're being indicted for killing cows, cow killing. I guess that's I don't know if I think that's the proper term. The Cow Slaughter Act of 1955. I thought back in 1955, I guess they thought it was probably good to get it on the books. You shouldn't be killing people's cows or slaughtering them or burning them, but not a good sign, right? Where you have this huge 7-year-old bovine that's huge, plentiful. Then you got the little tiny one, the little Bill. And you got these 7 charred, right? So I think, you know what? I'm going to take the Google search a little bit further. I'm going to take this. I'm going to see if there's any other, Joseph and Pharaoh and Egypt and famine and plenty. Any of these things that I can find. And guess what I find? I type in Pharaoh into the search bar. And within what? The last 7 days? Pharrell. He's kicking it as Pharaoh for Chanel. Weirder than that, because as we're talking about plenty, right? We're talking about plenty. Guess what? Major discovery there in Texas and New Mexico. The feds have discovered the largest oil deposit ever on record. Guess how many years it's said to last for? 7 years of plenteous oil and gas. Yeah. Coincidence? So you have the plentiful oil, the oil abounding for 7 years, and guess what? Looks like the first time ever, the U.S. yield curve just inverted. Yeah, in 7 years. So you know what that means? There's no more growth. For the first time in 7 years, it's inverted. It's not a good thing. So they're saying, what's coming? Big time recession. Isn't that interesting? So it's almost like we're entering into that time of lack, that time of little bills and charred cows. We're entering into a time of lack. That's not great if that's the truth, if that's the kind of the message that's being sent here. I'm not saying it is, but it's a lot of coincidence. And you got Pharrell dressed as Pharaoh. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird, a little coincidental. But you know what's even more coincidental is the fact that in the last 7 days, global carbon pollution just saw its highest jump in, Go figure, 7 years. And on YouTube, the highest earner ever this year, guess how old they were? 7 years old. In sports, too, you got this new pitcher, Tanaka, all right? $155 million contract for 7 years in the last 7 days. There's a lot of sevens. I gotta tell you, 7's a scary number. You know why? Because 7, 8, 9. It's a good one. So am I saying that we're entering? I don't know what I'm saying. All I do know is that this 7-year period it got my attention back when the eclipses were going on, and it's getting my attention again. And I'm following all these breadcrumbs, and they're leading me in a direction to think that, maybe when things are good, maybe it's time to store up that treasure. Maybe it's time for us to really, look at our lives and say, maybe we can do a little bit better. Maybe we can seek a little bit more, live a little bit more, and love a whole lot more. Because that's really what needs to be stored up. Because when this stuff comes, when this hard time comes, which is going to come, between AI and climate and whatever else you want to throw against the fan, it's... We're in for it. We're in for a hard time. But the good news is we're more than this place. The good news is we can be in this world, but not of it. If we're of it, we're going to really have a problem when the little bills of the world come out and we see everything that we thought we had torn from us, and we're left with nothing but fear and faith in what? This government system? It's not going to get you anywhere. So I'm not saying that you should go and you should start, but maybe like you go and shop and get a couple of extra cans, put it on the shelf. There's nothing wrong with being prepared, but don't go out of your way to do anything crazy, because if you have faith, you won't need to. What's that great, beautiful story where, that the lilies of the field were, Solomon in all his glories never looked like a simple lily in the field. That the birds of the air, they don't have to worry where they're going to get their next meal. You think that you're less important than a lily and a bird? Ha! It's time to start storing up that treasure. It's time to be like Joseph, being released from the prison of the lies that you've believed and helping to store up that real treasure, which doesn't corrupt, where the moth can't eat it away. And you got to put out them stinky mothballs, and nobody likes that. I don't even know if they make mothballs anymore. All right, I love each and every one of you. Do me a favor, hit the bell, will you? Check the bell, like the thing, comment, do the stuff, share it around. 7 years. Spooky. I tried not to be too goofy on this one because I actually feel like there's something to this. I don't know. So it's weird. It's weird. I love each and every one of you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.